Barak Yahuwah, Barak Yahuwah, Barak Yahuwah. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom to the whole house, the whole Ba'if of Yasha'al, all 12 tribes, wherever your feet are touching the soil on this most Kadush Yom. Peace and blessings, Shalom and Barakut to you and your entire house. Shabbat Shalom to the elder brother, Yahudah. Shabbat Shalom to the younger brother, Ephraim. Shabbat Shalom to the former stranger, the former foreigner, who was formerly estranged from the everlasting covenant, but having now received the Ruach of adoption, the Ruach HaKadosh, the Ruach of the Mashiach, and whereby now, having been engrafted into the olive tree, whereby now becoming a fellow citizen and a fellow partaker of the same everlasting covenant and promise and inheritance that was given to Yasha'al and to Yasha'al alone. Shabbat Shalom to you, all 12 tribes worldwide, and the stranger, the former stranger, who has engrafted into us. Shabbat Shalom to you on this most Kadush Yom. To those of you who are on YouTube who will listen to this later on, once again, we are grateful that the Master has sent you our way. There are a plethora of YouTube channels that you could be listening to, and we do not take this for granted. We are humbled. Hear us. We are genuinely humbled that the Master has sent you our way to hear his words through this dirt vessel. So we do not take this for granted. We are very grateful and humbled that that the Master has sent you to listen to his words. Again, to those of you on YouTube who would desire to join us live, you may find our contact information in the channel description. There's an email address that you may contact us there if you desire to join us live. Nevertheless, Shabbat Shalom to you wherever your feet are touching the soil. Shabbat Shalom to you on this most Kadush Yom. This is Yahuwah's Remnant Channel. I am Dawood Ben Yahuwah, and this is my Aisha Ashayah.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Thank you, Master. Barak Yahuwah. Here we are now with Shabuah in our rear view. With Shabuah in our rear view. Nevertheless, the sense of urgency of this time and of this season, of this Muadah, has not been relinquished. There still needs to be a sense of urgency. There still must be a sense of urgency. Even though Shabuah now is in our rear view, there is still much work to be done. There is still much work to be done. We cannot yet let go of the plow. We cannot yet ungird our loins. We cannot yet let go of our staffs. We cannot yet let go of the sense of urgency that the Master has placed in those who are called by his name. So although Shabuah is in the rear view, there is still much work to do. Leading up to Shabuah, the Master, he spoke many things to prepare his sheep, to prepare his people to receive life, to receive Ruach, to receive breath. He spoke many things in an effort to cleanse his people, in an effort to awaken his people from a sleep, to awaken his people from a slumber, and to cause them to begin to wash themselves, and to bring them back into an everlasting covenant, to bring them back into the bond of covenant with him, that perhaps he would keep them from the hour of trial, that perhaps indeed he would keep them from the hour of trial. That is still our expectation. That is still our expectation as we walk this ancient path and Ruach and in truth, not just being hearers of the Torah, hearers of righteousness, but doers of righteousness. It is still our expectation that if we continue this, that this very path that we are on will lead to Mount Zion, where we will be given a song in which no one else can sing. Many of us had great expectation leading up to Shavuot, and our great expectation for that day. Many of us expected a mighty rushing wind. Indeed, many of us expected a mighty rushing wind. But the Master has sent his servant by, I pray, with some words of encouragement, with both words of encouragement and words of edification. Was it wrong for us to expect that mighty rushing wind? Was it wrong for us to desire that mighty rushing wind? The answer is no. It was not wrong for us to desire and to expect that mighty rushing wind. But what the Master wants us to understand is this, and that is that we cannot put him in a box. We cannot place the Master in a box. What happened on that day of Shavuot in Acts chapter 2, hear him, has never happened before, and it has never happened again. No. And there were many that were filled with his ruach, that were filled with his breath, that never encountered something like that. That has never happened again. And it had never happened before that time. It had never happened before that time, and it has never happened again. You see, those 12 men were special. Yes, they were. They were very special. Those 12 men are going to sit on 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of YAHUAH'S. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. And so what the Master wants you to understand, Mishpach, is that just because you didn't experience that mighty rushing wind does not mean that you did not receive his breath. No, it does not mean that you did not receive his breath just because you did not receive that mighty rushing wind. And so, those of you who did receive his breath, the Master has sent me by today, and if you're taking notes, he sent me by with the subject of this teaching, Searching for the Ancient Path, Part 51. Searching for the Ancient Path, Part 51. Walk now in thy calling. Walk in thy calling. You did not receive his breath just to stand pat with it. You did not receive his breath for your esteem. You received his breath for his esteem. For his esteem. And now you are expected, if indeed you receive his breath, you are expected now, in this Muadah, to walk in your calling. To walk in your calling unlike ever before. Because behold, the Master is coming quickly. And his reward is with him to reward each according to his works. So now we must walk in our callings. We must walk in our callings, and we must now be living Torahs. We must now be that living light, and whatever calling he has called you to, and there are many gifts, there are many callings of which he has given when those whom have called receive his breath. There are diverse gifts that he gives us. Now, if you have received his breath, hear him, because we are running out of time. And there is an expectation of us. There is a requirement of us to now share this light, to now walk in the newness of life, to now walk in our gifts and our callings, to walk this servant's road. Yes, the ancient path is a servant's road. To walk this servant's road and be what? Be servants of reconciliation. To be servants of reconciliation, operating in whatever gift or whatever calling that he is giving you. Yes, if you have received his breath, he is calling upon you now. Hear him, hear him. He is calling upon you now to walk in your calling. To walk in your calling. It does not have to look like what it looked like in Acts chapter 2. It does not have to look like that. You see, we are of a generation where we have a history of things. We have a history of the acts and the signs and the wonders of our Father Yahuwah. We have a history of it. And in this generation, we are required to walk by faith, to walk by belief and not by sight. You are now required to activate the gift and the calling that he has given you by belief. He is calling you to just walk in it. Just walk in it. Quit waiting on that rushing mighty wind and walk in it. If he has indeed breathed his breath on you, he is calling upon you to walk in your calling. And if you do not walk in your calling, he is going to hold you accountable. He is going to hold you accountable because we now must do the work of our Father while it is still day, because night is coming upon this earth where no man can work. He is going to hold each of us accountable if we do not now walk in whatever gift or whatever calling that he has called us to. Hear him. You cannot say that you are on the ancient path if you are not walking, in your calling. Because the walk in the ancient path, again, is to be a servant of reconciliation. To walk this ancient path, and this is what I appreciate about this Zoom family, is to be a family of called out ones. This is the foundation. This is the example, to be a family. Indeed, it started with a family. Indeed, it started with one man, Adam. It started with him, but let's go forward. Let's go forward to our father Abraham and his son Yitzchak and his son Yahuah. And from them were 12 sons. And from them a whole family was created. This is the example. For this family, this has always been the plan of the Master. For this family to go throughout the earth and to be that living Torah, to be that living light, to be Torah made flesh, and to invite all mankind into this family, because all mankind are invited into this family. They are invited to engraft into this family and to obey the same instructions that the Master gave to this family, the same words of life that the Master gave to this family. They are invited to come into this family and obey those very self-same words. And so now family, and you are family if you receive this breath. If you've received this breath, we are to be that light. We are to be that one called out family, that one family on the block that everybody talks about, that everybody envies, that everybody wants to be alike. We are to now be that family, that family whose porch light is always on. And that porch light is always on because they like you to see that nice manicured lawn. They like you to see how everything at that house is nice and put in order. How everything is decent and in order at that corner house. And so they like that house to be well lit. Night or day. They like that house to be well lit, and everybody in the neighborhood knows that house. Everybody in the neighborhood envies that house. Everybody in the neighborhood wants to be like that family. They want to be like that family. And this is what the Master is calling us to now. If you've received this breath, he's calling you to be that light, the light amongst the nations, the light amongst the Gentiles. He's calling you right now. Right now, we're running out of time. He's calling you right now to be that light, to be that example, to be that living Torah, and to walk in your calling. You can't walk this ancient path without walking in your calling. You can't walk this ancient path without being a servant of reconciliation. If you're not a servant of reconciliation, if you're not walking in your calling, you're not on the ancient path. You're not here. You're on a broad path that leads to destruction. You're on a broad path that leads to destruction. So now, with Shavuot in the rear view, and some of you, I heard your testimonies. I heard you. You received this breath. And just because it doesn't resemble and look like that mighty rushing wind does not mean that you haven't received this breath. And it does not mean that you have not been given a gift. And there's not now an expectation that you are to now walk in your calling and to be a light amongst the nations, to be a light amongst the Gentiles, in order to reconcile all those who will come in this season back to everlasting covenant with him. And that perhaps they will be kept from the hour of trial. Because once that number is met, once that specific number is met and the appointed time arrives, his breath is going to be removed from this earth. The water is going to be turned off, and death is coming. And if you haven't done your part, having received his breath, if you haven't done your part to warn and to be that light amongst the nations, having received his breath, then you may be in the number of those who are left to the hour of trial. Yes, the Master has also sent me by to speak to his people. You must not slumber. You cannot slumber just because Shavuot is behind us. You can now, you still cannot slumber. You still cannot sleep. His words are still resonated. Those who slumber will die. Those who slumber will die. If you've received this Ruach, you still cannot slumber. You now have much work to do. You have much work to do. Too much has been given. Much has been required. Much is required. If he's given you his breath, much now is required of you. Much now is expected of you. Searching for the ancient path, part 51. Walking, not calling. Walking, not calling. Just because, again, you didn't experience that mighty rushing wind does not mean that you have not received his breath. Does not mean you have not received his breath. Line upon line, precept upon precept. Here a little, there a little. Walking, not calling. Walking, not calling. To walk and not calling is to walk in the ancient path. To walk and not calling is to walk in the ancient path. It is synonymous. All who walk this ancient path are expected to walk in your calling. To walk in your calling. Whatever that is, you are expected now to walk in your calling. This is not a spectator sport. This is not a spectator sport. Time is running out. His breath is getting ready to be removed from this earth. The water is getting ready to be turned off. If you've received this breath and you are on this ancient path, you must now walk in your calling. Turn now to Jeremiah chapter 6. We're going all the way back to the beginning. All the way back to the beginning of this ancient path, because the Master wants to emphasize something. All the way back to the starting point. All the way back to the starting point. Turn to the book of YAHUAH'S, Jeremiah chapter 6. YAHUAH'S chapter 6. Verse 16. YAHUAH'S chapter 6. Verse 16. Jeremiah chapter 6. Verse 16. YAHUAH'S chapter 6. Verse 16. Reading verse 16. Read for us, little one.
Thus said Yahuwah, stand in the ways and see, and ask for the old paths,
yes,
where the good way is,
where the good way is,
and walk in it,
and what?
And and walk in it,
and walk in it. This is what the Master wants you to do. Walk in it. Walk in your calling. You cannot walk the ancient path without walking in your calling. Read.
And find rest for yourselves. But they said, we do not walk in it.
Do you not understand that if you don't work, you're not going to rest? 6 days he's given us to work, and on the 7th day we rest. If you have not worked, you will not rest. Walk the ancient path and find rest for your souls. And find rest, but you cannot walk the ancient path without walking in your calling, without serving, without walking, without being a servant of righteousness. Come on, little one, read.
A note to speak.
Go ahead.
The ancient path is the servant's path.
Barak Yahuwah, worth repeating, is it, little one?
Oh, yeah.
The ancient path is the servant's path. Come on.
It is the way back to Yahuwah.
It is the way back to Yahuwah. Do you understand? The ancient path, the narrow path, is the way back to Yahuwah. Come on.
We are servants of reconciliation.
We are servants of reconciliation.
As servants of reconciliation.
As servants of reconciliation.
We must walk in our calling.
We must walk in our calling. Do you understand that this is the desire of the Master, to reconcile all mankind back to himself? This is not just about us. He has called us out of the nations, separated us unto himself in order to be lights to the nations, in order to draw them out of darkness into his marvelous light. And in doing so, he has given each of us gifts and callings to aid us in being servants of reconciliation. And this does not come until he breathes his breath upon you. And if he's breathed his breath upon you, there is now a great expectation. You now have a great responsibility. There are some things that are expected of you. You are required now. You are required. You are required to walk in your calling. If you are slumbering when the Master returns, you are going to die. They that slumber shall die. If he has called you and breathed his breath, you speak, oh, rain down on me. Give me your breath. Breathe on me. Do you not understand that it comes with a great responsibility? If he has given you your breath, his breath, you must now walk in your calling, or he is going to hold you. He's going to hold you accountable. He's going to hold you responsible. Now, unlike any time before, we've got to walk in our callings. And you've got to walk in belief to activate whatever gift he's given you. Just do it. Just do it. Just believe and just do it. Just walk in it. Just walk in it. Doesn't have to look like what you think. Doesn't have to feel like what you expected. That what happened in Acts chapter 2 on that day of Shabu'u has never happened again. Neither did it happen at a time before then. That did not even happen with the Hamashiach. No. That did not happen with any of our fathers. But they were full of the Ruach. They were full of the Ruach. And so if he has breathed on you, there's a requirement now expected of you. And if he finds you slumbering and not working, the Master, not Dawood, the Master says, if they slumber, they that slumber will die. They that slumber will die. This is not the time for slumbering. This is the time to work. If you've received this Ruach, this now is the time to work. Give us another precept, little one.
You have Deuteronomy 4, 1 through 8.
Deuteronomy 4.
1 through 8.
Verses 1 through 8. Deuteronomy 4. Verses 1 through 8. Deuteronomy 4. Verses 1 through 8. Deuteronomy 4. Verses 1 through 8. Beginning at verse 1. Read for us, little one.
And now, O Yasharal, Listen to the laws and the right rulings which I am teaching you to do.
Yes.
So that you live.
Yes.
And shall go in and possess the land which Yahuwah Elohim of your fathers is giving you. Do not add to the word which I command you. And do not take away from it. So as to guard the commands of Yahuwah your Elohim, which I am commanding you. Your eyes have seen what Yahuwah did at Baal Pa'ur. For Yahuwah your Elohim has destroyed from your midst all the men who follow Baal Pa'ur. But you who are clinging to Yahuwah your Elohim are alive today, every one of you. See, I have taught you laws and right rulings, as Yahuwah my Elohim commanded me to do. Thus in the land which you go to possess, and you shall guard and do them. For this is your wisdom and your understanding.
This is your wisdom and your understanding. Come on.
Before the eyes of the people.
Before who?
Before the eyes of the people.
This ain't just for you. This isn't just for you. You expect it now to be a light, to be a living Torah, having the Torah now written upon your heart. You are now expected to be a living Torah before the people, before the nations. This has always been our calling, to be a living Torah to the nations, so as to call the nations out of darkness into its marvelous light, to call them back into the bond of covenant with him, to call them back into fellowship with him. Come on, read, little one.
Who hear all these laws, and they shall say, only a wise and understanding people is this great nation.
Only a wise and understanding people is this great nation. Why? Because they're being living Torahs, living lights amongst the nations, having the Torah written upon the heart. You wanted this breath? Some of you received it, well, now you got it. Now you received this breath. And now you expect it now to walk in your calling. You expect it to walk in your calling. Whatever that calling is, you expect it now to walk in your calling. Read.
For what great nation is there which has Elohim so near to it, as Yahuwah our Elohim is to us, whenever we call on him?
Barak Yahuwah.
And what great nation is there that has such laws and righteous right rulings?
Barak Yahuwah.
Like all this Torah which I set before you this day.
Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. This is for the nations. This is for the nations. This is about the reconciliation of mankind. If he's given you gifts, if he's breathed his breath upon you, if he's written his Torah upon your heart, if he's written a ketubah upon your heart, and he's given you gifts, and he's called you to something, you are now expected in walking this ancient path, to walk in your calling, and to invite the nations too, to come along with this family. This nice corner house with the nice manicured lawn that's always well lit. You invited to come live with us. Come join us. You envy this family? You can be a part of this family. You can be just like us. Just like this family. It's not exclusive. No, it's not exclusive. It's for all mankind. All mankind. Come on. Get on this ancient path. You want to be like this family. You want to be like this family. You have an open invitation. But if you come in this house, you have to obey the rules of the house. You can't come in with your own rules. You have to obey the rules of the house. You have to obey the same Torah that was given to this beautiful family that you want to be alike. You received this breath. Now, you've got to get to work. You've got to get to work. You've got to now be about your Father's business. There is no more time for slumbering or sleeping. You've got to be about your Father's business. The time is nigh. The time is near that the Hamashiach is getting ready to come and gather his people and bring us to Mount Zion. And so now we must work like we've never worked before. Because why? Because night is coming now when no man can work. And so we must work now. Work now. So when the master comes, he finds us well doing. He finds us well doing. If you've received this breath, you have no more excuse. You have no more excuse. You thought it stopped with receiving his breath? He gave you his breath so that you could be a servant of reconciliation. To now reconcile the rest of mankind back to covenant with him. Come on, give us another precept, little one.
Matthew 5:14-16.
Matthew 5. Matthew 5. Matthew 5. 14 through 16. Oh, Master. Everyone who's under the sound of his voice, you have no excuses. Yes, that was a desperation leading up to Shavuot to receive his breath. Now the work begins. Now the work begins. All who received his breath, now the work begins. And if you're listening now, under the sound of my voice, you have no excuse. You can't slumber no more. You cannot sleep. You slumber, you're going to die. You slumber, you're going to die with the rest of them. Matthew chapter 5, verse 14 through 16. Come on, read, little one.
You are the light of the world.
You are the light of the world. This is a testimony to Deuteronomy chapter 4. Oh, what a wise and understanding people this is who has the Torah. Who has the Torah for their guide. Torah is light. This is a precept, a testimony of that. Read. Start from the beginning, little one. Read it again.
You are the light of the world.
You are the light of the world.
It is impossible for a city to be hidden on a mountain. Nor do they light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a lampstand.
Yes.
And it shines to all those in the house.
Yes.
Let your light so shine before men.
Let your light, let your Torah, you be a living Torah. Let your light shine before men. If you are a living Torah, if you have received this breath, and he has written the Torah upon your heart and established a ketubah, a marriage agreement with you, now there's a great expectation and a great requirement that is required of you. Come on, read, little one.
So that they see your good works and praise your Father who is in the heavens.
He's not accepting excuses from you. He ain't accepting excuses. He don't care if you are afflicted. He don't care if you are in pain, because he suffered all those things. He doesn't care about just current circumstance. He doesn't care about any of that. If you have now received his breath, there is a great expectation, a requirement that is required of you to be a light before men, to reconcile mankind back to the everlasting covenant with Yahuwah our Elohim. He's not accepting excuses. We must now work. We must now work while it is day, because night is coming when no man can work. Come on, read, little one.
We have Matthew 25:14-30.
Matthew chapter 25. Matthew chapter 25. Which verses, little one?
14-30.
Verses 14 through 30. Matthew chapter 25. Verses 14 through 30. Hear him. I'm under no illusion that everybody received this breath. Some did. Some did. I'm convinced of it. Some received his breath. And if you received this breath, there's something expected of you. There is something now expected of you, and that is to be a living Torah, to operate in whatever gift that is, whatever gift that he has given to you, and whatever calling he has called you to, he is expecting you now to walk in it. Matthew chapter 25, verses 14 through 30, beginning at verse 14.
For it is like a man going from home, who called his own servants and delivered his possessions to them. And to one he gave 5 talents.
Yes.
And to another 2.
This is all about being servants of reconciliation. Servants of reconciliation. If he's breathed his breath into you, he's given you gifts. Yes, he has. If he has breathed his breath into you, he's given you talents. He's given you gifts. And he expects you to operate in them, to walk in thy calling. To walk this ancient path, this servant's path, and to be servants now of reconciliation, and to walk in thy calling. Read, little one.
And to another one, to each according to his own ability, and went from home. And he who had received the 5 talents went and worked with them, and made another 5 talents. In the same way, he with the 2 also, he gained 2 more. But he who had received the 1 went away and dug in the ground, and hid the silver of his master. And after a long time, the master of those servants came and settled accounts with them. And he who had received 5 talents came and brought 5 other talents, saying, Master, you delivered to me 5 talents. See, I have gained 5 more talents besides them. And his master said to him, Well done, good and trustworthy servant. You were trustworthy over a little. I shall set you over much.
Hallelujah, Yahuwah.
Enter
Servants.
into the joy of your master.
Barak Yahuwah.
And he who had received 2 talents.
Servants of reconciliation. Servants of reconciliation. We are required to be servants of reconciliation, walking this ancient path. And if he has breathed his breath into you, if he has breathed his breath into you, whether or not now you have a gift of song, whether or not you now have a gift of compassion, whether or not now you have a gift of service or of serving others, or whatever that gift is that he has given you, you're required now to walk in your calling. And there are no more excuses. Come on, read, little one.
Came and said, Master, you delivered to me 2 talents. See, I have gained 2 more talents besides them. His master said to him, Well done, good and trustworthy servant. You were trustworthy over a little. I shall set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. And the one who had received the 1 talent also came and said, Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you have not sown, and gathering where you have not scattered seed, and being afraid, I went and hid your talent in the ground. See, you have what is yours. And his master answering said to him, You wicked and lazy servant, you knew that I reap where I have not sown, and gather where I have not scattered seed. Then you should have put my silver with the bankers, and at my coming I would have received back my own with interest. Therefore take away the talent from him, and give it to him who possesses 10 talents. For to everyone who possesses, more shall be given, and he shall have overflowingly. But from him who does not possess, even what he possesses shall be taken away. And throw the worthless servant out into the outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth.
Now understand something here. He said throw him into the outer darkness. He said throw him into the outer darkness. Here's the understanding. The lake of fire is not outer darkness. Lake of fire is the final death. That's the second death. Yes, it is. That's the second death. What they call hell, what they call Shaul, that's not the second death. That's the outer darkness. That's the outer darkness. This is what happens when the Messiah comes back, when he comes back to establish the millennial reign. If you have not operated in your gifts and callings that he has given you, if he is you've been set up. You've been set up. Oh, send your breath, master. Send your ruach. Send your fire. If you receive this breath, now there is an expectation that is required of you. You are required to operate in whatever gifts and whatever talents that he has given you. If he comes back and you have not been operating in your gifts and the talents that he's given you, what does he say? Throw them into the outer darkness. Put them in the pit. Put them in the outer darkness. That's not the end. That's not finality. The lake of fire is finality. That is finality. But for now, he says here, throw them into the outer darkness. And there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. You think this is a joke? You think this is a game? No. That breath is not for you. That breath is for others. That gift he's given you, that calling that he's given you, it's not for you. It is for others. And he's not taking any excuses. He's not taking any excuses. When he came, he didn't give excuses. He didn't give the excuse that he was afflicted and that he couldn't serve. He didn't give the excuse that they're plucking out my beard and I can't serve. He didn't use the excuse that I'm sick, that I'm afflicted, and I can't serve. He didn't use the excuse that I'm hurt, that I'm in pain, and that I can't serve. He simply served. He put others before himself. Having received breath, he operated in the gift and the calling that was placed upon him. And we are not greater than our master. We are not greater than our master. We must now operate in the gift, in whatever calling that he's given us, because time is running out. Time is running out. And there is a number there is a number that must be reached. And listen, that number is going to be reached with or without you. It's going to be reached with or without you. That number that he has in mind, 144,000 and those attached to them. That number is going to be reached with or without you. With or without you, it's going to be reached. But he is calling you now, if you have received this breath, to take part in this great work. To take part in this great work. As I've spoken before, the Master has only sent me to his remnant within the remnant. He's not sent me to everybody. He sent me to his remnant within the remnant. And that's who he's talking to now. He's talking to you, remnant within the remnant, who have received his breath, who have received the ruach of truth, who have received the ruach of righteousness, who have received gift and callings, to now operate in thy calling, to walk in thy calling, to invite the people, to invite the nations on board the ark of the covenant, to perhaps save them from the hour of trial that is soon to come upon this earth. Come on, give us another precept, little one.
We have Luke 12, 43 to 48.
Luke 12. Luke 12. Luke 12, verses 43 to 48. Luke 12, verses 43 to 48. Luke 12, verses 43 to 48. Beginning at verse 43. Come on, read for us, little one.
Blessed is that servant whom his master shall find so doing when he comes.
Baruch is that servant whom his master shall find well doing when he comes. Read.
Truly I say to you, that he shall appoint him over all his possessions. But if that servant says in his heart, my master is delaying his coming.
In other words, that servant begins to slumber. That servant begins to slumber and sleep. What's going to happen, little one?
And begins to beat the male servants and female servants, and to eat and drink and be drunk. The master of that servant shall come on a day when he does not expect him.
Yes.
And at an hour that he does not know.
Oh, behold, I come quickly. Come on, read.
And shall cut him in two and appoint his portion with the unbelievers. And that servant who knew his master's desire and did not prepare, nor did according to his desire, shall be beaten with many stripes.
Yes.
But he who did not know, yet did what deserved flogging, shall be beaten with few. And everyone to whom much is given, from him much shall be demanded. And to whom much has been entrusted, from him much shall be asked.
Barak Yahuwah. Oh, you've been set up. You've been set up. You wanted his breath. You received his breath. Now you are expected to be a servant of reconciliation. You are expected to walk in thy calling. It had been better had you not known and had not received his breath and had not asked for his breath. Now, much is required of you. Much is required of you. Much is required. Let me retract that, because I can't say that it's better that you receive his breath, because if you receive his breath, you're still going to die. You're still going to die. You're going to die if you didn't receive his breath, but if you've received his breath and refuse to walk in that calling, it's going to be worse for you. Isn't that what it said? It's going to be worse for you. Now, the great distress is a time unlike the earth has ever seen before, nor will it ever see again. But it says here, if you've received this bread, if you've received Ruach, and you've been given gifts and callings, and you don't operate in it, you're going to receive more stripes. It's going to be worse for you. Oh, you've been set up. You've been set up. You've been set up. Now you can no longer slumber. You can no longer slumber. If you've been called to prophesy, prophesy. If you've been called to serve, serve. If you've been given the gift of song, sing. Whatever gift he's given you, you have no more excuse. Provided he has anointed you to operate in this gift. Provided that you've received his breath. And if you've received his breath, you have no more excuses. You have none. You have no more excuses. Oh, you put on notice this day. You put on notice. You asked for his breath, well, now you got it. And now you put on notice. And now he's commanding you to walk in thy calling. To walk in thy calling. There's much at stake. Much at stake. Lives are at stake. Souls are at stake. There is much at stake. And he's calling you, commanding you now to walk in your calling. To walk in your calling. Come on, give us another precept, little one.
Revelation 22:12.
Revelation 22:12. Revelation 22:12. Revelation chapter 22, verse 12. Revelation chapter 22, verse 12. Beginning at verse 12, read for us, little one.
And see, I am coming speedily.
And see, I am coming quickly. Read.
And my reward is with me.
And my reward is with me. Read.
To give to each according to his work.
To give to each according to his works, to his service, to walk in. For those who are walking in thy calling. Well done, my good and trustworthy servant. If you are walking this servant's role, which makes you a servant of reconciliation, then now you are expected to walk in your calling, to be lights in the midst of the nations, to invite them into this family, that beautiful family corner house, to invite them into this family, to be living Torahs. You may not even need to speak. You may not even need to speak. Just be a living Torah. Just be Torah made flesh. Just be a light in the midst of the nations. Let your light so shine amongst men and operate in whatever gift and whatever calling that he has called you to. Time is running out. Night is almost here. Night is almost here. And if you do not operate as a son or a daughter of light while there is still light, you're going to be left to the darkness. You're going to be left to the darkness. If you slumber now, you're going to die. And this is only, hear him, this is only to those who have received his breath. Only to those who have received Ruach. Only to those who have received Ruach. Don't let this discourage you from receiving Ruach, because if you don't receive breath, you're still going to die. But if you've received breath and not operate in your gift, in your calling, and not be a living Torah, then it's going to be worse for you. It's going to be worse for you. That's a conundrum, isn't it? The Psalm said that's between a rock and a hard place. Receive his breath and operate in your calling. That's the only other alternative. If you've received his breath, now operate in your gifts and the callings that he's called you to. Barak Yahuwah. Give us another precept, little one.
We have Romans 12:3-12.
Romans 12. Romans 12. Romans 12. Romans 12. Verses 3 through what?
12.
Verses
12.
3 through 12. Romans 12, verses 3 through 12. Romans 12, verses 3 through 12. Beginning at verse 3. Come on, read, little one.
For I say, through the favor which has been given to me.
For I say, through the favor that has been given to me. Read.
To everyone who is among you.
To everyone who is among you.
Not to think of himself.
Not to think of himself.
More highly than he should think.
More highly than he should think. Now, if you've received breath, that doesn't mean that the gifts are equal. That the gifts are equal across the board. Don't think more of yourself than you ought. Don't think more of yourself than you ought. He is given to us. He's given gifts to each of us in accordance with our belief. In accordance with our belief. But if you've received his breath, he's giving you something. He's giving you something. But he also wants you to understand, do not think of yourself more than you ought. Do not say that you are a Nabi when you are not a Nabi, when he has not called you to be a Nabi. Do not say that you are a proclaimer when he has not called you to proclaim. Do not say that he has given you a gift of healing or any other type of gift when he's not giving it to you. He's giving each of us gifts according to our beliefs. So do not think more of yourself than you ought. This is a family. This is an assembly. And each of us have a part in this, have a part in the reconciliation of the nations. Each of us have a part in the building of his house. But we do not have the same gifts and callings. And so do not think more of yourself than you ought. Do not get yourself into trouble. Do not think more of yourself than you ought. Come on, read, little one.
But to think soberly, as Elohim has given to each a measure of belief. For as we have many members in one body, but all members do not have the same function. So we, the many, are one body in Mashiach, and members each one of one another. Now having different gifts according to the favor which was given to us. Let us use them accordingly. If prophecy, according to the proportion of belief.
According to the proportion of belief. Don't think more of yourself than you ought. Come on, read.
If serving, in the serving.
If serving, in the serving. Read.
Or he who is teaching, in the teaching.
Or he who is teaching in the teaching. Read.
Or he who encourages.
Or he who encourages.
In the encouragement.
In the encouragement. Read.
Or he who is sharing in sincerity.
Or he who is sharing in sincerity.
He who is leading in diligence.
He who is leading in diligence.
He who shows compassion joyously.
He who shows compassion joyously.
Let love be without hypocrisy. Shrink from what is wicked. Cling to what is good in brotherly love. Tenderly loving towards one another in appreciation. Giving preference to each other. Not idle in duty, ardent in rook, serving the master, rejoicing in the expectancy, enduring under pressure, continuing steadfastly in prayer.
Barak Yahuwah. Enduring steadfastly, no matter what affliction or trial that you face. If he's given you breath, if he's breathed breath into you, then there is an expectation. He has given you a gift or a calling in which you are expected to operate in proportion to your belief. In proportion to your belief. As the text just said, you can no longer be idle. You can no longer be idle. You can no longer slumber. If you're idle, if you're slumbering, you're going to die. If you're idle or you're slumbering, you're going to die. Too much has been given. Much has now been required. You asked for his breath, now you got it. Now there is an expectation that you are going to be a servant of reconciliation with using whatever gift and calling that he has given to you. Give us another precept, little one.
1 Corinthians chapter 12.
1 Corinthians chapter 12. 1 Corinthians chapter 12. 1 Corinthians chapter 12. 1 Corinthians chapter 12. 1 Corinthians chapter 12. Beginning at verse 1. Read, little one.
And concerning spiritual gifts, brothers, I do not wish you to be ignorant. You know that you were nations led away to the dumb idols, even as you might be led. Therefore I make known to you that no one speaking by the Ruach of Elohim says Yahusha is accursed, and no one is able to say that Yahusha is master except by the Kadush Ruach. And there are different kinds of gifts, but the same Ruach. There are different kinds of services, but the same master. And there are different kinds of workings, but it is the same Elohim who is working all in all. And to each one is given the manifestation of the Ruach for profiting. For to one is given a word of wisdom through the Ruach, and to another a word of knowledge according to the same Ruach, and to another belief by the same Ruach, and to another gifts of healing by the same Ruach, and to another operations of power, and to another prophecy, and to another discerning of Ruachs, and to another kinds of tongues, and to another interpretation of tongues. But one and the same Ruach works all these.
Oh, if you've received Ruach, if you've received breath, you are expected now to operate in your gifts and calling for the building up and the edification of the assembly and for the reconciliation of mankind back to the everlasting covenant with Yahuwah our Elohim. Read.
Distributing to each one individually as he intends.
Mm-hmm.
For as the body is one and has many members, but all the members of that one body, being many, are one body, so also is the Mashiach. For indeed, by one Ruach we were all immersed into the body, whether Yahudim or Greeks, whether slaves or free, and we were all made to drink unto one Ruach. For indeed the body is not one member, but many. If the foot says, because I am not the hand, I do not belong to the body, does it therefore not belong to the body? And if the ear says, because I am not an eye, I do not belong to the body, does it therefore not belong to the body? If all the body was an eye, where would be the hearing? If all hearing, where would be the smelling? But now Elohim has set the members, each one of them, in the body, even as he is pleased. And if they all had been one member, where would the body be? And now there are indeed many members, but one body. And an eye is unable to say to the hand, I have no need of you. Or again, the head to the feet, I have no need of you. But much rather those members of the body which are thought to be weaker are necessary. And to those of the body which we think to be less respected, these we present greater respect. And our unseeming members have greater seemingly less. Whereas our seemingly members have no need. But Elohim blended together the body, having given greater respect to that member which lacks it, that there should be no division in the body, but that the members should have the same concern one for another. And if one member suffers, all the members suffer with it. Or if one member is esteemed, all the members rejoice with it. And you are a body of Mashiach and members individually. And Elohim has appointed these in the assembly. First emissaries, secondly prophets, thirdly teachers, after that miracles, then gifts of healings, helps, ministrations, kinds of tongues. Are all emissaries? Are all prophets? Are all teachers? Are all workers of miracles? Do all have gifts of healing? Do all speak with tongues? Do all interpret? But earnestly seek the better gifts.
But earnestly seek the better gifts, read.
And yet I show you a more excellent way.
And yet I show you a more excellent way. And all of this is predicated on receiving breath, on receiving Ruach. If you have received breath, mute your mic, please. Mute your mic. If you have received breath, if you have received Ruach, you are now expected to operate in the gifts, whatever gift, whatever calling that He has called you to. You are expected now. Hear Him. Hear Him. You can no longer remain idle. If He has given you breath, Ruach, you must now seek the gifts. You must seek Him seek Him and ask Him, Master, what gifts have you given me? What gift, the calling, have you called me to? You must seek Him on this. And you must operate in whatever gift and calling that He's called you to, for not only for the building up and the edification of the assembly of the family, but also to be lights amongst the nations, in order to reconcile the nations, in order to reconcile mankind back to the everlasting covenant with the Master. He didn't give you your breath. He didn't give you Ruach. He didn't give you gifts and callings for yourself. There is now a great expectation that is expected and required of each of you who have received breath. Who have received breath. Barak Yahuwah, give us another. Where are we at now, little one?
Time-wise?
Next precept.
Oh, Genesis 5:18-24.
Genesis 5. Genesis 5. Genesis 5, verses 18 through 24. Genesis 5, verses 18 through 24. The Master began by saying that we cannot put Him in a box. We simply cannot put Him in a box. Again, I would have loved to experience that mighty rushing wind. Many of us would have loved to have experienced that mighty rushing wind. But the master has sent me by to speak to his people, in that what happened on that day has never happened since, nor did it happen before then. Yet there have been many who have not experienced that mighty rushing wind, yet have received his breath, and yet have been filled with his Ruach HaKadosh. Filled with his Ruach HaKadosh, and have walked in their calling. Have walked in their calling. Our righteous fathers, and we're getting ready to revisit some of them in this teaching. Perhaps not all of them today. Just to encourage someone who may be thinking that just because I didn't experience that mighty rushing wind on Shabu'u, that doesn't mean that you have not received breath, that you have not received Ruach, that you have not received life. And if you have now, you are required to walk in your calling. To walk in your calling. You're required now to walk this ancient path, which is the servant's path, which is the way back to Yahuwah. This is the way of reconciliation. And walk in this path, we are servants of reconciliation. And we are to now operate as servants of reconciliation, and operate in our calling, whatever that is, whatever calling, whatever gift that is. Genesis chapter 5. Genesis chapter 5, verses 18 to 24. Verses 18 to 24. Verses 18 to 24. Genesis chapter 5, verses 18 to 24. Verses 18 to 24. Beginning at verse 18. Read for us, little one.
And Yerad lived 162 years, and brought forth Canuk. And after he brought forth Canuk,
yes,
Yerad lived 800 years, and brought forth sons and daughters.
Yes.
So all the days of Yerad were 962 years, and he died. And Canuk lived 65 years.
And Canuk lived 65 years,
and brought forth Methuselah. And after he brought forth Methuselah, Canuk walked with Elohim 300 years.
Canuk walked with Elohim for 300 years. He walked this same ancient path that we are walking. Read.
And brought forth sons and daughters.
And brought forth sons and daughters.
So all the days of Canuk were 365 years. And Canuk walked with Elohim.
And Canuk walked with Elohim. Read.
Then he was no more.
Then he was no more.
For Elohim took him.
For Elohim took him. Canuk walked this very same ancient path that we're walking. And what happened to Canuk is what we desire. We desire to be taken and brought to Mount Zion, where we will be given a song that no one else can sing. What the Master wants us to understand, however, is that there is no account that Canuk experienced that mighty rushing wind. However, Canuk was full of the Ruach HaKadosh. He was full of the Master, and he walked in his calling. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. He walked in his calling, as the text says. He walked with Yahuwah for 365 years. He walked with him. He walked with him, and he walked in his calling. And at the conclusion of walking in his calling, the Master took him. And this is our desire. At the conclusion now of walking in our calling, in this season, and this Muadah, that the Master will take us as well. He will take us as well. Turn now to Jasher. Jasher, the book of Jasher. The book of Jasher. The Master, he simply wants us now to walk in our callings, to activate it through belief, and to walk in our callings. If you have received his breath, he wants you now to walk in your calling so that you can fulfill your purpose, the purpose of the Master using you, whomever you are, who've received his breath, to reconcile the nations back to covenant with him, and to perhaps save whoever has ears to hear, eyes to see, and a heart to understand. Perhaps save them from the hour of trial. Jasher, is it chapter 3 or 4, little one?
Chapter 3.
Jasher chapter 3. Jasher chapter 3. Jasher chapter 3. Jasher, the book of Jasher chapter 3. Jasher chapter 3. Beginning at verse 1. Read, little one.
And Canuk lived 65 years, and he begat Methuselah. And Canuk walked with Elohim after having begat Methuselah, and he served Yahuwah.
He walked and he served Yahuwah, yet there is no account that he experienced a mighty rushing wind, yet he was full of the Ruach HaKadosh. He had received breath. He had received breath. We cannot put the master in a box. We cannot put him in a box. If you receive breath, if you receive this breath, there is a requirement that is expected of you. Read.
And despised the evil ways of men. And the soul of Canuk was wrapped up in the instruction of Yahuwah, in knowledge and in understanding. And he wisely retired from the sons of men, and secreted himself from them for many days.
He's walking in his calling, but there's no account of having received that mighty rushing wind. Read.
And it was at the expiration of many years, while he was serving Yahuwah and praying before him in his house, that a messenger of Yahuwah called to him from heaven. And he said, Here I am. And he said, Rise, go forth from your house, and from the place where you do hide yourself, and appear to the sons of men.
Go and walk in your calling, Canuk. Come on, read.
In order that you may teach them the way in which they should go.
Walk in your calling. Read.
And the work which they must accomplish to enter in the ways of Elohim.
It's always been about the reconciliation of mankind. Even before the time of the flood, it's always been about the reconciliation of mankind and the master using us through us walking in our callings. Read.
And Canuk rose up according to the word of Yahuwah, and went forth from his house, from his place, and from the chamber in which he was concealed. And he went to the sons of men and taught them the ways of Yahuwah. And at that time assembled the sons of men and acquainted them with the instruction of Yahuwah. And he ordered it to be proclaimed in all places where the sons of men dwelt, saying, Where is the man who wishes to know the ways of Yahuwah and good works? Let him come to Canuk. And all the sons of men then assembled to him. For all who desired this thing went to Canuk. And Canuk reigned over the sons of men, according to the word of Yahuwah. And they came and bowed to him, and they heard his word. And the Ruach Elohim was upon Canuk.
And who?
The Ruach Elohim.
I know what you said. I want them to hear it.
The Ruach Elohim.
And the Ruach of Elohim was upon Canuk. Was there a mighty rushing wind?
No, sir.
No, ma'am. Come on, read.
And he taught all his men the wisdom of Elohim and his ways. And the sons of men served Yahuwah all the days of Canuk. And they came to hear his wisdom. And all the kings of the sons of men, both first and last, together with their princes and judges, came to Canuk when they heard of his wisdom. And they bowed down to him, and they also required of Canuk to reign over them, to which he consented. And they assembled in all 130 kings and princes, and they made Canuk king over them. And they were all under his power and command. And Canuk taught them wisdom, knowledge, and the ways of Yahuwah.
He walked in his calling. He was clothed in a ruach, but there is no evidence of a mighty rushing wind. Yet he was clothed in the Ruach, and he walked in his calling. Read.
And he made shalom amongst them. And shalom was throughout all the earth during the life of Canuk. And Canuk reigned over the sons of men 243 years. And he did justice and righteousness with all his people. And he led them in the ways of Yahuwah. And these are the generations of Canuk. Methuselah, Elisha, Elimelech, 3 sons, and their sisters was Malka and Naamah. And Methuselah lived 87 years, and he begat Lamech. And it was in the 56th year of the life of Lamech, when Adam died, 930 years old was he at his death. And his 2 sons with Canuk and Methuselah his son buried him with great pomp. as at the burial of kings in the cave which Elohim had told him. And in that place all the sons of men made a great mourning and weeping on account of Adam. It has therefore become a custom among the sons of men to this day. And Adam died because he ate of the tree of knowledge, he and his children after him, as Yahuwah Elohim had spoken. And it was in the year of Adam's death, which was the 243rd year of the reign of Canuk. In that time Canuk resolved to separate himself from the sons of men and to secret himself as at first in order to serve Yahuwah. And Canuk did so, but did not entirely secret himself from them, but kept away from the sons of men 3 days, and then went to them for 1 day. Yet
he still walked in his calling. Read.
And during the 3 days that he was in his chamber, he prayed to and praised Yahuwah Eloha'u. And the day on which he went and appeared to his subjects, he taught them the ways of Yahuwah. And all they asked him about Yahuwah he told them. And he did in this manner for many years. And he afterward concealed himself for 6 days, and appeared to his people 1 day in 7, and after that once in a month, and then once in a year, until all the kings, princes, and sons of men sought for him, and desired again to see the face of Canuk, and to hear his word, but they could not, as all the sons of men were greatly afraid of Canuk, and they feared to approach him on the account of the Elohim like all that was seated upon his countenance.
On the Elohim like all that was seated upon his countenance. Yet there is no account of him experiencing a mighty rushing wind. Yet he was clothed in the Ruach of Yahuwah. Some of you received his breath. Some of you received breath. You may not have received a mighty rushing wind, but you received his breath. And now you are expected to walk in your calling. Read.
Therefore no man could look at him, fearing he might be punished and die. And all the kings and princes resolved to assemble the sons of men and to come to Canuk, thinking that they might all speak to him at the time when he should come forth amongst them. And they did so. And the day came when Canuk went forth, and they all assembled and came to him. And Canuk spoke to them the words of Yahuwah, and he taught them wisdom and knowledge, and they bowed down before him, and they said, May the king live, may the king live. And in some time after, when the kings and princes and the sons of men were speaking to Canuk, and Canuk was teaching them the ways of Elohim, behold, a messenger of Yahuwah then called unto Canuk from heaven, and wished to bring him up to heaven to make him reign there over the sons of Elohim, as he reigned over the sons of men upon earth. When at that time Canuk heard this, he went and assembled all the inhabitants of the earth, and taught them wisdom and knowledge, and gave them divine instructions. And he said to them, I have been required to ascend into heaven. I therefore do not know the day of my going. And now therefore I will teach you wisdom and knowledge, and will give you instruction before I leave you, how to act upon the earth whereby you may live. And he did so.
And he walked in his calling. Read.
And he taught them wisdom and knowledge, and gave them instruction, and he reproved them. And he placed before them commandments and judgments to do upon earth. And he made shalom amongst them. And he taught them everlasting life, and dwelt with them some time, teaching them all these things. And at that time the sons of men were with Canuk, and Canuk was speaking to them. And they lifted up their eyes, and the likeness of a great horse descended from heaven, and the horse paced in the air. And they told Canuk what they had seen. And Canuk said to them, On my account does this horse descend upon earth. The time is come when I must go from you, and I shall no more be seen by you. And the horse descended at that time and stood before Canuk. And all the sons of men that were with Canuk saw him. And Canuk then again ordered a voice to be proclaimed, saying, Where is the man who delights to know the ways of Yahuwah Eloha'u? Let him come this day to Canuk before he is taken from us. And all the sons of men assembled and came to Canuk that day. And all the kings of the earth with their princes and counselors remained with him that day. And Canuk then taught the sons of men wisdom and knowledge, and gave them divine instruction. And he bade them serve Yahuwah and walk in his ways all the days of their lives. And he continued to make shalom amongst them. And it was after this that he rose up and rode upon the horse. And he went forth, and all the sons of men went after him, about 800,000 men. And they went with him one day's journey. And the second day he said to them, return home to your tents. Why will you go? Perhaps you may die. And some of them went from him, and those that remained with him 6 days' journey. And Canuk said to them every day, return to your tents, lest you die. But they were not willing to return, and they went with him. And on the 6th day some of the men remained and clung to him. And they said to him, we will go with you to the place where you go. As Yahuwah lives, death only separates us. And they urged so much to go with him that he ceased speaking to them. And they went after him and would not return. And when the kings returned, they caused a census to be taken, in order to know the number of remaining men that went with Canuk. And it was upon the 7th day that Canuk ascended into heaven in a whirlwind with horses and chariots of fire.
The Shabbat day. Read.
And on the 8th day all the kings that had been with Canuk sent to bring back the number of men that were with Canuk in that place from which he ascended into heaven. And all those kings went to the place, and they found the earth there filled with snow, and upon the snow were large stones of snow. And one said to another, come, let us break through the snow and see. Perhaps the men that remain with Canuk are dead, and now are under the stones of snow. And they searched but could not find him, for he had ascended into heaven.
Barak Yahuwah, Barak Yahuwah, Barak Yahuwah. There is no account that Canuk received a mighty rushing wind, yet Canuk was clothed in Ruach. Canuk walked in his calling. He walked in his calling his whole life. Even to the time that he was taken up, he was walking in his calling. This is key, because Baruch is that servant whom his master shall what? Shall find well doing. Shall find well doing. Behold, I come quickly, and my reward is with me, to reward each according to his works. Thus, we must be like Canuk. If you have received breath, if you have received Ruach, you must be now about your Father's business. And you must work. You must work until it is time to go. You must not sleep or slumber. Canuk did not sleep nor slumber. He worked until it was time to go. Baruch is that servant whom his master shall find well doing. Shall find well doing. And so if you have received breath, if you have received Ruach, there is now a great expectation that is required of you. You can no longer sleep. You can no longer now slumber. Those who slumber, those who sleep shall die. They will die. Those who slumber shall die. The master must find us well doing. He must find us about our Father's business. He has given us talents. He has given us gifts now. And he must find us well doing when he comes. There are no excuses. There are no excuses. You wanted his breath. Well, now some of you have received it. Now you must get to work. You must be about your Father's business. You must now walk in your calling in the way that Canuk and all of our righteous fathers walked with the masters their whole life. But as it applies to this season, and as it applies to 144,000 and those who are joined to them, in Canuk being that example, we must work. We must be found working. We must be found with our hands to the plow. We must be found being about our Father's business until the very day that he comes and removes us from this earth and brings us to Mount Zion, where we will be given a song that no one else can sing. Line by line, precept upon precept, for those of you who had an expectation and who were disappointed because you did not receive a mighty rushing wind. Neither did Canuk. Neither did Canuk. But he was full of the Ruach HaKadosh, and he walked in his calling. That what happened that day has never happened again. It has never happened again. Nevertheless, there are some who are still full of the Ruach of Yahuwah Al-Yum. Come on, give us another precept. What are we looking like for time, little one?
119.
All right, Barak Yahuwah, give us another precept.
Exodus 3, the whole chapter.
Line by line, precept upon precept. Here a little, there a little. Walking, not calling. Don't put the master in a box. Just because you didn't receive a mighty rushing wind does not mean you have not received Ruach. Kanuk was full of Ruach, and he walked in his calling. Yet there is no witness of him receiving a mighty rushing wind. Exodus chapter 3 in its entirety. Exodus chapter 3 in its entirety. Beginning at verse 1. Come on, read for us, little one.
And Masha was shepherding the flock of Yethro, his
And Masha was shepherding the sheep of Yethro, his father-in-law. Read.
The priest of Midian.
Uh-huh.
And he led the flock to the back of the wilderness.
Uh-huh.
And came to Karub, the mountain of Elohim.
Uh-huh.
And the messenger of Yahuwah appeared to him.
And the messenger of Yahuwah did what?
Appeared to him in a flame.
Appeared to him in a flame. Uh-huh.
Of fire from the midst of a bush.
Yes.
And he looked and saw the burning bush with fire.
Uh-huh.
But the bush was not consumed.
Yes.
And Masha said, let me turn aside now.
Uh-huh.
And see this great sight. Why does this bush does not burn?
Uh-huh.
And Yahuwah saw that he turned aside to see. And Elohim called to him from the midst of the bush and said, Masha, Masha. And he said, here I am. And he said, do not come near here. Take your sandals off your feet. For the place on which you are standing is Kadosh ground.
Oh, I could run right now. Barak Yahuwah, Barak Yahuwah, Barak Yahuwah, Barak Yahuwah. Do you not understand that you can't come into the presence of Yahuwah without receiving Ruach? Do you not understand that you can't come in his presence without receiving Ruach? He's receiving Ruach right here. But there is no mighty rushing wind. But we know what the master did through Masha. Yet there is no mighty rushing wind. Barak Yahuwah. If you've received this breath, there's a requirement that is expected of you. Come on, read, little one.
And he said, I am the Elohim of your father, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Ishkak, the Elohim of Yaakov. And Masha hid his face, for he was afraid to look at Elohim. And Yahuwah said, I have indeed seen the oppression of my people who are in Mitzrayim, and I have heard their cry because of their slave drivers. For I know their sorrows, and I have come down to deliver them from the hand of the Mitzrites, and to bring them up from that land to a good and spacious land, to a land flowing with milk and honey, to the place of the Canaanites, and the Catites, and the Amorites, and the Perizzites, and the Kawites, and the Yabusites. And now see, the cry of the children of Yasharal has come to me, and I have also seen the oppression with which the Mitzrites oppressed them. And now come, I am sending you to Parah.
Whoa, stop right there. Now come, I'm sending you. So Masha was a sent one. No different than the taught ones. They were sent. They were sent ones. He was Shalak. He was a sent one. And the master doesn't send you without being prepared. He doesn't send you without being clothed in his Ruach HaKadosh. Yet there is no account of Masha receiving a mighty rushing wind. Oh, I pray somebody is holding on to this. If you receive this breath, it doesn't have to look like what they received in Acts chapter 2. The master did mighty things through Masha. He did mighty things through Kanuk. Yet there is no evidence of a mighty rushing wind. Yet they were sent ones. They had received this Ruach. They had received this breath. Yes, they had. Yes, they had. If you've received this breath, activate it. Activate the gift that he's giving you and walk in it. You are expected to. You are required to. And he's taking no excuses from you. None. He's taking no more excuses. We must be found well doing because he's coming quickly now. He has spoken this. He is coming quickly to gather his people. He is coming quickly, and we must be found well doing, operating and walking in our calling. Whatever it is, if you're not walking in your calling, you're slumbering, you're sleeping. And the master has spoken these words. They who slumber, they that slumber will die. They that slumber will die. Come on, read, little one.
To bring my people, the children of Yasharal, out of Mitzrayim. And Moshe said to Elohim, who am I that I should go to Parah, and that I should bring the children of Yasharal out of Mitzrayim? And he said, because I am with you, and this is to you the sign that I have sent you.
How is he with him, little one?
His Ruach.
His Ruach. Masha in him and Masha. Is there a mighty rushing wind here? Oh, somebody, if you've received this breath, there's a requirement that is expected of you. Come on, read, little one.
When you have brought the people out of Mitzrayim, you are to serve Elohim on this mountain. And Moshe said to Elohim, see, when I come to the children of Yasharal and say to them, the Elohim of your fathers has sent me to you. And they say to me, what is his name? What shall I say to them? And Elohim said to Moshe, I am that which I am. And he said, thus you shall say to the children of Yasharal, I am has sent me to you. And Elohim said further to Moshe, thus you are to say to the children of Yasharal, Yahuwah Elohim of your fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Ishkak, the Elohim of Yaakov, has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and this is my remembrance to all generation. Go, and you shall gather the elders of Yasharal together, and say to them, Yahuwah Elohim of your fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, of Ishkak, and of Yaakov appeared to me, saying, I have indeed visited you, and seen what is done to you in Mitzrayim. And I say, I am bringing you up out of the affliction of Mitzrayim, to the land of the Canaanites, and the Katites, and the Amorites, and the Perizzites, and the Kawites, and the Yabusites, to a land flowing with milk and honey. And they shall listen to your voice, and you shall come, you and the elders of Yasharal, to the sovereign of Mitzrayim. And you shall say to him, Yahuwah Elohim of the Hebrews has met with us. And now please let us go 3 days' journey into the wilderness, to slaughter to Yahuwah our Elohim. But I know that the sovereign of Mitzrayim is not going to let you go, not even by a strong hand. And I shall stretch out my hand and strike Mitzrayim with all my wonders, which I shall do in its midst. And after that he shall let you go. And I shall give this people favor in the eyes of the Mitzrites. And it shall be that when you go, you shall not go empty-handed. But every woman shall ask from her neighbor and from the stranger in her house objects of silver and objects of gold and garments. And you shall put them on your sons and on your daughters, and shall plunder the Mitzrites.
Barak Yahuwah, Barak Yahuwah. If he's breathed his breath into you, as he breathed into Masha, where there is no evidence of a mighty rushing wind, you must now walk in your calling. We are required, Barak Yahuwah, Barak Yahuwah, Barak Yahuwah, to walk in our calling. I was talking with Ashiyah, I believe it was maybe last week, maybe week before last, and I'm going to give away some of my age. But I remember years ago watching this movie called The Last Dragon. Some of you may be familiar with that movie. You're going to give away your age too, if you remember it. But I remember watching this movie called The Last Dragon. And in this movie, they had these characters, these key characters. One's name was Bruce Leroy. And the other's name was Show Nuff. His name was Show Nuff. And at the climax, Bruce Leroy and Show Nuff, they're fighting. And Show Nuff, he's giving it to Bruce Leroy. I mean, he's giving it to him like nobody's business. He's just whipping on him and beating him like nobody's business. And towards the end of the scene, as Show Nuff is beating up on Bruce Leroy, and he dunks his head in the water a few times, and then he dunks his head in the water that last time, and Bruce Leroy remembered something. He remembered something that his master, that his master had told him. He told him that what he was seeking was already in him, was within. What he was seeking was already in him. It was already within him. And Bruce Leroy remembered this. And as Show Nuff brung him out of the water that last time, and he asked him, he said, "Who's the master?" And Bruce Leroy says, I am. Because he remembered. And then, of course, he started to whoop on Show Nuff. But he remembered what was in him. what was in him. You know, we put the master in a box many times because many times we're expecting fireworks. We're expecting the shamayim to open up. That's not to say that that's not going to happen. You know, we're expecting earthquakes and fire and mighty winds, and we're expecting things. But the master, he says this: if you have the belief of a mustard seed, you will say what to this mountain? Be thou removed, and it will fall into the sea. Is that what it said? Is that not what it says?
Yes, sir.
So belief activates this thing. If he has breathed his breath into you, if he has breathed his breath into you, mute your mics, please. If he has breathed his breath into you, mute your mics, please. If he has breathed his breath into you, activate what he's put into you. Often what you seek is already in you. It's already there. He's already put it in you. If he's breathed his breath into you, he has already breathed the breath of life into you, and it is already there. Now walk in your calling. Walk in your calling. You're required now to walk in your calling. To walk in your calling. You're required, and there is an expectation that you are now going to walk in your calling. You asked for it, well, now you got it. You've received this breath. Now you are required to walk in your calling. Exodus chapter 4. Actually, we're going to skip Exodus chapter 4. We're going to skip Exodus chapter 4. What's the next one? 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel?
1 Samuel 16.
1 Samuel chapter 16. 1 Samuel chapter 16. Line upon line, precept upon precept. Here a little, there a little. You know, we got to get out of this Gentile mindset. That's not to say that we're not going to see great signs and wonders. I believe we are. I believe we are. But the master wants us now to simply operate and walk in it. Walk in it. Walk in it. If he's called you to it, call down fire from Shamayim. But you can't call down fire from Shamayim without having belief. Without having belief. If he's breathed breath into you, if he's given you his ruach, like we've seen here in the examples now of Masha and of Canute, walk in it. Walk in it. We are expected now in this season, right now, in this Muadah, to walk in it. To walk in our callings. To walk in our callings, and don't expect it to look like what we expect. Don't put the master in a box. Do not put him in a box. Receive his breath and walk in your gift and your calling. You are expected to. 1 Samuel chapter 16. 1 Samuel chapter 16. 1 Samuel chapter 16. Beginning at verse 1. Come on, read for us, little one.
And Yahuwah said to Shamuel, how long are you going to mourn for Shaul, seeing I have rejected him from reigning over Yasharal? Fill your horn with oil and go. I am sending you to Ishai, the Ba'it Lakamit, for I have seen among his sons a sovereign for myself. And Shamuel said, how would I go? When Shaul hears it, he shall kill me. And Yahuwah said, take a heifer with you and say, I have come to slaughter to Yahuwah. And you shall invite Ishai to the slaughtering. Then let me show you what to do. And you shall anoint for me the one I say to you. And Shamuel did what Yahuwah said. And went to Ba'ith Lakam. And the elders of the town trembled at his coming and said, do you come in Shalom? And he said, in Shalom I have come to slaughter to Yahuwah. Set yourselves apart, and you shall come with me to the slaughtering. And he set Ishai and his sons apart, and invited them to the slaughtering. And it came to be when they came that he saw Eliab and thought, the anointed of Yahuwah is indeed before him. But Yahuwah said to Shamuel, do not look at his appearance or at the height of his stature, because I have refused him. For not as man sees.
Yes.
For man looks at the eyes, but Yahuwah looks at the heart.
Barak Yahuwah.
Then Ishai called Abinadab and made him pass before Shamuel. And he said, neither has Yahuwah chosen this one. Next, Ishai made Shammah pass by. And he said, neither neither has Yahuwah chosen this one.
Mm-hmm.
And Ishai made 7 of his sons pass before Shamuel. And Shamuel said to Ishai, Yahuwah has not chosen these. And Shamuel said to Ishai, are these all the young men? And he said, there remains yet the youngest, and see, he is tending the sheep.
Yes.
And Shamuel said to Ishai, send and bring him, for we do not turn round till he comes here.
Come on.
And he said and brought him, and he was ruddy, with bright eyes and handsome.
Yes.
And Yahuwah said, arise, anoint him.
Anoint that one right there.
For this is the one. And Shamuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the midst of his brothers.
What happened?
And the Ruach of Yahuwah came upon Daoud from that day.
Wait a minute, mighty rushing wind.
No, sir.
Wasn't no mighty rushing wind. You sure? Y'all reading the same text? Wasn't no mighty rushing wind. Read that again, little one. I need to make sure that got to be a mighty rushing wind somewhere in there.
And the Ruach of Yahuwah came upon Daoud from that day and onwards.
Barak Yahuwah. Barak.
And Shamuel arose and went to Ramnah.
Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. If it doesn't have to look like what you expect, if he's giving you his ruach, if he's giving you his breath, by whatever means he desires to give him to you, and it doesn't, again, it doesn't have to resemble mighty rushing wind. Daoud received the ruach hakodesh this day, when Shamuel anointed him, and Daoud walked in his calling his whole life, even before he became sovereign. He was sovereign for 40 years, but even before that, he walked in his calling. From that day, he walked in his calling. It was expected of him to walk in his calling. And what's interesting here is that the master didn't allow him to use the excuse that he was a boy. It didn't matter that he was a boy. I've anointed you. I've anointed you now. I've anointed you sovereign. I've breathed my breath into you. I've given you gifts and callings. And even though you were a boy, you are required to walk in your calling. Even those amongst us who are children, if the master has breathed on you and anointed you, even you are expected to walk in your gift and your calling. Yes, you are. Daoud was a boy. He was a lad. And he was expected to walk in his gift and his calling. If he's breathed on you, if he's given you his breath by whatever means that he has done so, there is a great expectation now that you are now going to walk in your calling. Read, little one.
And the Ruach of Yahuwah turned aside from Shaul, and the evil Ruach from Yahuwah troubled him. And the servants of Shaul said to him, look now, an evil Ruach from Elohim is troubling you. Please let our master command your servants who are before you to seek out a man who is a skilled player on the lyre. And it shall be that when the evil Ruach from Elohim is upon you, that he shall play with his hands and you be well. And Shaul said to his servants, please get me a man that plays well, and bring him to me. And one of the servants answered and said, look, I have seen a son of Ishai the Ba'if Lakamit, who knows how to play, a brave one, and a man of battle, and skilled in words, and a handsome man, and Yahuwah is with him. So Shaul sent messengers to Ishai and said, send me your son Daoud, who is with the sheep. And Ishai took a donkey loaded with bread, and a skin of wine, and a young goat, and sent them by his son Daoud to Shaul. And Daoud came to Shaul and stood before him, and he loved him greatly, and he became his armor-bearer. Shaul therefore sent to Ishai, saying, please let Daoud stand before me, for he has found favor in my eyes. And it came to be, whenever the evil Ruach from Elohim was upon Shaul, that Daoud would take a lyre and play it with his hands. Then Shaul would become refreshed and well, and the evil Ruach would leave him.
Barak Yahuwah, chapter 17. Chapter 17. Chapter 17. Daoud received the Ruach HaKodesh as a young boy, as a young child. Yet again, there is no evidence of a mighty rushing wind when he received the Ruach HaKodesh. Yet he received the Ruach HaKodesh, and afterwards, as with his fathers, as with his predecessors, he was now expected to walk in his calling. As Masha walked in his calling, as Kanuk walked in his calling. Now this young boy, having been anointed, having received the Ruach HaKodesh with no evidence of a mighty rushing wind, is now expected to walk in his calling. He is expected now to walk in his calling. Chapter 17, beginning at verse 1.
And the Philistines had gathered their armies for battle, and came together at Seku, which belongs to Yehudah, and encamped between Seku and Azekah in Aphaz Damim. And Shaul and the men of Yasharal were gathered, and encamped in the valley of Elah, and drew up in battle array to meet the Philistines. And the Philistines stood on a mountain on one side, and Yasharal stood on a mountain on the other side, with the valley between them. Then a champion came out from the camp of the Philistines named Goliath from Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span, and a bronze helmet was on his head, and he was armed with the scald armor, and the weight of the coat was 5,000 shekels of bronze, and bronze shins guards on his legs, and a bronze spear between his shoulders. And the wood of his spear was like a weaver's beam, and his iron spearhead weighed 600 shekels. A shield bearer went before him. And he stood and shouted to the armies of Yasharal and said to them, Why have you come out to line up for battle? Am I not a Philistine, and you the servants of Shaul? Choose a man for yourselves, and let him come down to me. If he is able to fight with me and shall strike me, then we shall be your servants. But if I overcome him and shall strike him, then you shall be our servants and serve us. Then the Philistines said, This day I shall reproach the armies of Yasharal. Give me a man and let us fight together. And Shaul and all Yasharal heard these words of the Philistine, and they were broken down and in great fear. Now Daud was the son of that Ephrathite of Ba'ith Lakam and Yehudah, whose name was Ishai, and he had 8 sons. And in the days of Shaul, the man was old among men. And the 3 oldest sons of Ishai went. They had gone to follow Shaul to the battle. And the names of his 3 sons who went to battle was Eliab, the firstborn, and his second Abinadab, and the third Shammah. And Daud was the youngest, and the 3 oldest followed Shaul. But Daud went and returned from Shaul to feed his father's sheep at Ba'ith Lakam. And for 40 days the Philistines drew near, morning and evening, and took his stand. Then Ishai said to his son Daud, Please take your brothers an ephah of this dry grain and these 10 loaves, and run to your brothers at the camp. And take these 10 cheeses to the commander of the thousands, and see how your brothers are, and bring back news of them. For Shaul and they and all the men of Yasharal were in the valley of Elah fighting with the Philistines. And Daud rose up early in the morning and left the sheep with the herdsmen, and took and went as Ishai had commanded him. And he came to the camp as the army was going out to fight, and they shouted for the battle. And Yasharal and the Philistines drew up in battle array, army against army. And Daud left his supplies in the hand of the keeper of supplies, and ran to the army and came and greeted his brother. And he was speaking with them, and saw the champion, the Philistine of Goliath by name, coming up from the armies of the Philistine. And he spoke according to the same words, and Daud heard. And all the men of Yasharal, when they saw the men, ran from him, and were in great fear. And the men of Yasharal said, Have you seen this man who has come up? For he has come up to reproach Yasharal. And it shall be that the man who strikes him, the sovereign is going to enrich him with great riches, and give him his daughter, and give his father's house exemption in Yasharal. And Daud spoke to the men who stood by him, saying, What shall be done for the man who strikes this Philistine, and shall take away approach from Yasharal? For who is this uncircumcised
Philistine? Come on.
That he should reproach the armies of the living
That
Elohim.
he should reproach the armies of the living Elohim. This is a boy now walking in his calling. Daud was a warrior king. Daud was a warrior sovereign. Yes, he was. Yes, he was. But here, after receiving this anointing, even before he was crowned as sovereign, we find him walking in his calling as a warrior. He was a warrior king. He was a warrior sovereign. Here he is, this boy. Doesn't matter how old you are. Doesn't matter about your affliction. It doesn't matter what you're going through. If he has given you breath and he has anointed you, you are expected to walk in your calling. Who is this uncircumcised Philistine? that he would reproach the armies of the living Elohim. Come on, read.
And the people answered him according to this word, saying, This is what is done for the man who strikes him. And Eliab, his oldest brother, heard when he spoke to the men. And Eliab's displeasure burned against Daud. And he said, Why did you come down here? And with whom have you left those few sheep in the wilderness? I know your pride and the evil of your heart, for you have come down to see the battle. And Daud said, Now what I have done, what is not but a word? And he turned around from him toward another and said the same word. And these people answered him a word like the first word. And when the words which Daud spoke were heard, they reported them to Shaul, and he sent for him. And Daud said to Shaul, Let no man's heart fail because of him. Your servant is going and shall fight with the Philistine. And Shaul said to Daud, You are not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for you are but a youth, and he a man of battle from his youth.
No, he's anointed. He's received breath, and he's walking in his calling. Read.
Then Daud said to Shaul, Your servant has been tending sheep for his father, and when a lion or a bear came and took a lamb out of the flock, I went out after it and struck it and rescued it from its mouth. And when it rose against me, I took hold of it by its beard and struck it and killed it. Your servant has stricken both lion and bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be like one of them, seeing he has reproached the armies of the living Elohim. And Daud said, Yahuwah, who has delivered me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear, he does deliver me from the hand of this Philistine. And Shaul said to Daud, Go, and Yahuwah be with you. And Shaul dressed Daud with his garments, and he put a bronze helmet on his head, and put a coat of armor on him. And Daud girded his sword over his garments, and began to go. But he had not tried them. Then Daud said to Shaul, I am not able to go with these, for I have not tried them. So Daud took them off. And he took his staff in his hand, and chose for himself 5 smooth stones from the wadi, and put them in a shepherd's bag in a pouch, which he had. And his sling was in his hand, and he drew near to the Philistine. And the Philistine came and began drawing near to Daud. And the man who bore the shield went before him. And when the Philistine looked about and saw Daud, he despised him, for he was a youth and ruddy, and of handsome appearance. And the Philistine said to Daud, Am I a dog that you come to me with sticks? And the Philistine cursed Daud by his mighty ones. And the Philistine said to Daud, Come to me, and I give your flesh to the birds of the heavens and the beasts of the field. But Daud said to the Philistine, You come to me with sword and with the spear and with the javelin.
Yes.
But I come to you in the name of Yahuwah of hosts, the Elohim of the armies of Yasharal, whom you have reproached. This day Yahuwah shall deliver you into my hands, and I shall strike you and take your head from you.
And I shall strike you, this young lad says, and take your head from you. Read.
And give the carcasses of the camp of the Philistines today to the birds of the heavens and the wild beasts of the earth, so that all the earth know that Elohim is for Yasharal. And all this assembly know that Yahuwah does not save with sword and spear.
Come on.
For the battle belongs to Yahuwah.
Yes.
And he shall give you into our hands. And it came to be when the Philistines arose and came and drew near to meet Daud, that Daud hurried and ran toward the army to meet the Philistines.
Yes.
And Daud put his
walking
hand in his
in
bag.
his calling. He was called to be a warrior sovereign. He sat in the place of Yahuwah, Yahuwah Shabbat, master of armies of Shamayim. And so this young lad was called to be a warrior king. He was called to be a representation of Yahuwah on earth. And he begins now to walk in his calling, to walk as Yahuwah Shabbat on earth, being Yahuwah's walking stick, being Yahuwah's punishing rod, being Yahuwah's warrior, being his representation. The moment he was anointed, he began to walk in his calling. He began to walk in his calling here as a young boy. It doesn't matter how young you are. If he has anointed you and breathed the breath into you, breathed ruach in you, you are now expected to walk in your calling. Come on, read.
And took out a stone and slung it and struck the Philistine on his forehead, so that the stone sank into his forehead, and he fell on his face to the ground. Thus Daud was stronger than the Philistine with a sling and a stone.
A young boy full of anointing, full of the Ruach HaKadosh, walking in his calling. Read.
And struck the Philistine and killed him. And there was no sword in the hand of Daud. Then Daud ran and stood over the Philistine, and took his sword and drew it out of his sheath, and killed him, and cut off his head with it. And when the Philistines saw that their champion was dead, they fled.
You can stop right there. You can stop right there. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. If he's anointed you, if he's breathed breath into you, and it does not have to look like Acts chapter 2, if he has anointed you, as these righteous fathers were anointed, and as they walked, immediately as they began to walk in their calling, after they were anointed, each of you, whomever has received Ruach, whoever has received breath, you are now called to walk in your calling. Whatever that is, whatever that looks like, you are now required and expected to walk in your calling and to be found well doing when he comes, so that you may receive and hear those words, "Well done, my good and my trustworthy servant." I think we're going to read about one more chapter and we're going to be done. What are we looking like for time, little one?
It's 149.
149. What are we in, 2 Kings?
2 Kings, chapter 2.
2 Kings chapter 2? Barak Yahuwah. 2 Kings chapter 2. Line upon line, precept upon precept. Here a little, there a little. Walk in that calling. Walk in that calling. It doesn't have to look like a mighty rushing wind. It does not have to look like a mighty rushing wind. If you have received Ruach, if you've received breath, you are now required to walk in your calling. You are now required and expected to walk in your calling. 2 Kings chapter 2, beginning at verse 1. Come on, read for us.
And it came to be when Yahuwah was to take up Eliyahu to the heavens by a whirlwind, that Eliyahu went with Elisha from Gilgal. And Eliyahu said to Elisha, "Please remain here, for Yahuwah has sent me on to Ba'ith-al." And Elisha said, "As Yahuwah lives, and as your being lives, I do not leave you." And they went down to Ba'ith-al. And the sons of the prophet who were at Ba'ith-al came out to Elisha and said to him, "Do you know that Yahuwah is taking away your master from your head?" And he said, "I also know, be silent." And Eliyahu said to him, "Elisha, please remain here, for Yahuwah has sent me on to Yariku." And he said, "As Yahuwah lives and as your being lives, I do not leave you." And they came into Yariku. And the sons of the prophet who were at Yariku came to Elisha and said to him, "Do you know that Yahuwah is taking away your master from over you today?" And he said, "I also know, be silent." And Eliyahu said to him, "Please remain here, for Yahuwah has sent me on to the Yarden." And he said, "As Yahuwah lives and as your being lives, I do not leave you." And the two of them went on. And 50 men of the sons of the prophet went and stood facing them at a distance, while the two of them stood by the Yarden. And Eliyahu took his mantle and rolled it up and struck the water, and it was divided this way and that.
Walking in his calling. Come on.
So that the two of them passed over on dry ground. And it came to be when they had passed over that Eliyahu said to Elisha, "Ask what I am to do for you."
Ask what I am to do for you. Read.
"Before I am taken away from you." And Elisha said, "Please let a double portion."
Please let a double portion. Read.
"Of your ruach be upon me."
Of your ruach, of your anointing, be upon me. Read.
And he said, "You have made it hard to ask. Yet if you see me when I am taken from you, it is yours. But if not, it is not." And it came to be as they continued on and spoke, that see a chariot of fire with horses of fire.
Come on.
Which separated the two of them.
Come on.
And Eliyahu went up by a whirlwind
into the heavens. Oh, I want to go like that. I want to go like that. Come on, read.
And Elisha saw it, and he cried out, my father, my father."
Yes.
"The chariot of Yasharal and his horsemen." And he saw him no more.
Yes.
Then he took hold of his garments and tore them into two pieces. And he took up the mantle of Eliyahu that had fallen from him.
Wait a minute. Was there a mighty rushing wind?
No, sir.
Is there evidence of a mighty rushing wind? He asked for what? A double portion of the anointing that was on Eliyahu. He wanted that. There's got to be a mighty rushing wind. Somebody tell me, was there a mighty rushing wind?
No, sir.
Come on, continue to read.
And went back and stood by the bank of the Yarden.
Yes.
And he took the mantle of Eliyahu.
What did he do with it?
That had fallen from him, and struck the water and said,
"Look at that.
Where is Yahuwah Elohim of Eliyahu?" And he struck the water, and it was divided this way and that. And Elisha passed over.
You can stop right there. We stop right there for now. He immediately did what? He walked in his calling. He immediately began to walk in his calling. There's no evidence of a mighty rushing wind. Yet he received a double portion of the anointing that was on YAHUAH. He had belief. He had belief. And you must receive his breath by belief. He's not going to give his breath to an unbeliever. You must receive his breath by belief, and you must operate in this gift by belief, through belief, and by belief. Again, no evidence of a mighty rushing wind, yet he received breath, yet he received Ruach. Not only did he receive breath and Ruach, he received a double portion of the Ruach that was on YAHUAH, and he then immediately began to walk in his calling. And the same way that YAHUAH struck the water, he struck the water and began his walk, began walking in his calling. To much is given, much is required. Many leading up to YAHUAH were thirsty and hungry for his Ruach, were thirsty for his breath. They wanted his breath because indeed without breath we're dead. Without breath we are amongst the dead. But the Master has sent me by today to those who receive breath. If you've received this breath and you now refuse to walk in your calling, it's going to be worse for you than those who did not receive breath. This is the final hour. This is the final hour. Judgment is even at the door. And the Master expects us now to walk in our gifts and our callings, to call whatever remnant within the remnant is out there that has eyes to see and ears to hear and a heart to understand, to call them out of the nations, on board the Ark of the Covenant, to call them out of darkness into his marvelous light. Thank you, Master, for what you've done. We thank you for your breath that you've given to some. We pray that as this word went forth, that you have convicted, that you have cut, that you have edified, that your word has gone forth as a hammer that shatters, and that you have awakened some from their slumber, that you have awakened some from their comfortable state, from their sleep, from their slumber, and that you've given them a wake-up call now to understand that now that you have received breath, now that you have received Ruach, now there is an expectation that you must walk in your calling. You are required now to walk in your calling. If you are not walking in your calling, you are not on the ancient path. You are not a servant of righteousness. You are not a servant of reconciliation. And it's going to be worse for you than it is for those that have not received Ruach at all. I pray that your word, Master, that has been spoken today shall not return void, but that it shall go forth and accomplish that which you have sent it forth to do. I pray that it has not fallen amongst thorns, that it has not fallen on shallow ground, that it has not fallen by the wayside, but indeed it is falling upon fertile soil, fertilized soil, till soil, so that this fruit, this seed will grow up to become a mighty tree, producing the fruit that leads to everlasting life. It is in the name of Yahushua HaMashiach I pray. So be it.
So be it. So be it.
For those of you who are on YouTube, once again, we're grateful that you have stopped by to join us. We pray once again that you have been edified, that you've been challenged. For those of you, any of you who have received breath as a result of YAHUAH or any other day, for those of you who have received breath, that you've been challenged now, that you have been convicted now to walk in your calling, to walk in whatever calling, whatever gift that is given you, in order that in this season, in this muadah, that you would be a servant of reconciliation, and that you would allow the Master to use you to call his children out of darkness into his marvelous light, to the safety of his Ark of the Covenant, that perhaps that they would be saved from the hour of trial. Once again, for those of you who are on YouTube who would desire to join us live, our contact information is located within the channel description. You will find an email address there that you may email us if you are interested in joining us live. Until the next time, YAHUAH barak you and guard you. YAHUAH make his face shine upon you and show favor unto you. YAHUAH lift up his face upon you and give you shalom. Thus you shall put my name on the children of YAHUAH, and I myself shall barak them. So be it, so be it, so be it.